Hi there, Janet Fritz here for Galaxy Girl Creations. Welcome to my channel and welcome to Stretch the Sketch, which I'm combining with Series 12 of Christie's Beautiful Life, 30 Days of Sketches. Today's sketch is designed by Marcia Den Nix, and I hope I'm saying that right. I'm going to be rotating it, and I am going to be doing a double page because I need to stretch it for Stretch the Sketch. So these are the colors I'm using for some mixed media today. I'm actually doing quite a lot of mixed media, so you'll have to bear with me. And I will put the names of all of these colors down below for you. Some are shimmer sprays and some are just regular Dylusions. Out with some lemon zest in a plain color, or the plain one, not the shimmer one. So I'm starting out with all my plain colors, and then I'm going to go back and add some of the shimmer in the same colors. So I started out with lemon zest, and then I moved on to a little bit of pure sunshine, which is a little bit more orange than yellow. Then I went to some rose quartz for the pink. I'm not going to go over rose quartz with a rose quartz shimmer. I'm going to use a bubblegum shimmer, and then I'm going to use some Balmy Night and some Laid Back Lilac shimmer spray when all is said and done in this little area that I'm working in currently. And then I also used some slate gray and some black marble, and then I'm going to go over it with some black marble shimmer spray. So it's going to look quite different, and the reason it started out looking like it already had color on it is because I started out with some oxide inks over it to begin with, and once I got it all on there, it didn't have the look I was going for, and so instead of wasting the paper, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to go with what I know. I mean, not that I don't know oxides very well, but I was hoping for something a little more bold and shiny, so I decided just to pull out my Dylusions, which is a product that I love working with, and so I decided to go ahead and go with that. Now when I sprayed on the black, you can see a lot of the black overspray ended up in the yellow. I'm going to end up re-wetting that and picking that up with a paper towel so that it picks up a lot of that dark color, and that's what I'm doing here. And then I'll do it again to remove more of that dark color. I don't really want it to mix in because it starts to look a little bit greenish, and I don't really want a green in here. So my apologies for my voice. I have a cold, and yesterday I had hardly any voice. Today I am kind of trying to nurse it back, and I don't know how many videos I'm going to get done. I'm really under the weather and not feeling great, and I've got some travel plans, so I might not have a lot of videos left for the remainder of the month, but I'm going to see what I can do. So bear with me. I may end up just taking a little bit of time away from doing some videos to let my throat heal, and then come back in July with more. So bear with me, and hopefully you hit the notifications or the bell down below for notifications when I do release a new video, so that you will be notified right away. So I'm using my heat gun to go ahead and dry off some, or soak up some of this ink. I am using Vicky foundation paper just so it will have a lot of body to it, and to hold up to all of this liquid that I'm pouring on here, or spraying on here. And I feel like the Vicky paper does really well with the warping. Even with all of this, the Vicky paper started to warp a little bit, but if I had used regular paper, it would have been a hot mess. So this is a lot of mixed media going down, you guys, and I'm not even done, anywhere near done. When you roll over it with the paper towel and it leaves those paper towel marks, you don't have to really worry about it. It does go away. It's just where it dried up earlier, or dried up faster, and it leaves that image of the paper towel because those little areas are a little bit more wet. But as you can see, when it dries, it doesn't show. So now I'm going over the pink areas, or going over it with a little bit of pink, and this is the bubblegum spray that I was talking about. It is still Dylusions, and it is a shimmer spray. So here I'm actually picking up more of that darker color that had a little overspray wetting it with my my mixed media little sprayer that just has water in it, and then spraying pink over the top. And I really like the way that this looks. And then I'm going to use a little bit of yellow, and I'm just using my paintbrush to put it on because my sprayer wasn't working for some reason. I need to see why that's clogged and kind of clear that so it doesn't, so I can use it next time. So in case you're wondering what my layout is about today, I am doing a little bit of virtual reality because my sister's boys were in town over Easter. They stopped by on their way through town, and they were hanging out with my son. And my son, he has some VR equipment, and so they were doing some VR stuff that they had never done before. And so it was really cool. I thought it was a lot of fun for them, and it was just like a different kind of experience. These guys are really into cars and racing and such, and so a little bit different than what they typically hang out and do. But so my son had a good time showing them that, and I think they really enjoyed it. So I pulled out this stencil. This is from the Crafters Workshop. It's an older stencil. I don't know for sure if it's even available anymore. And I was hoping to get like a big sunburst across the 2 pages, but I was having a hard time because, you know, as the sunburst goes out, these things should be expanding out further and kind of growing, but I was not able to get that kind of an effect. So I ended up taking the stencil and I took a picture of it on a black piece of paper, and I brought it into my Silhouette studio as a JPEG, and I traced it, and I was able to blow it up to a 12 by 12 and cut that out. So you're going to see that here in just a moment. As I was putting this mixed media down, I was realizing this is not going to work for this because it's just too, you know, the bursts don't go far enough apart. They don't burst like a starburst. They were just, you know, more dotted lines. So this actually worked much better. And then I did a second sheet of this, but I have it expanding out even more. And that's going to be on my other page. So I am using some Picket Fence Studio paper glaze, and I'm using the Daffodil Yellow for the yellow. And then for that orange, I'm using some Marigold stencil butter from the Crafters Workshop. And then later on in the video, I'm going to use more of the paper glaze, but in Marigold Orange. So there are 2 different oranges. The Marigold Orange stencil butter is the brighter of the 2. And then the Marigold Orange paper glaze is the darker of the orange. And I'm going to be using a different stencil that has rectangles on it. So here is the other piece of the starburst that I used, and that is just a piece of cardstock I cut on my Silhouette. And again, I'm just putting some paper glaze and stencil butter right over the top, smushing it in there. I get a pretty good image doing it this way for this one, but when I was doing the small stencil multiple times, that's when I was having trouble because I wasn't really cleaning it in between, and so I don't get the best images, but it all works out and I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. So this is another Crafters Workshop stencil that I took a picture of over some black paper, again brought it into my Silhouette studio and cut it in a 12 by 12. And I was using just the spiced marmalade, but I ended up using Crackling Campfire because it was a little darker and I want kind of the subtle design of all of these squares. I do have the inspiration piece at the beginning of the video there that has all of these kind of looks to it, and so I thought this worked well. I also did put a little bit of gray over it, but it didn't show up much. So also the spiced marmalade didn't show up much, so this Crackling Campfire showed up the best. So I'm just kind of randomly going over it. I don't want the whole thing to be covered. I just want the squares here and there. And then I am also going to go over it with the paper glaze Marigold Orange. So that, again, that is the darker orange that I'm using. And I really like the way that it ends up looking. It's quite a bit different than what I thought it was going to come out as. But I almost considered doing the left-hand page all over again. But then I thought by the time I get the photos on there and I get this virtual reality die cut piece on there, not as much of it's going to show, so you're not going to even notice where the imperfect stencil work is or anything like that. So I know I want the VR goggles to have like a reflective surface of a bunch of different colors and such on it. So I decided to do a little bit of alcohol ink work. So this is Yupo paper, and these are alcohol inks from Picasso, something like that. And I started out with a silver mixative, and that I believe is from Ranger. And then I am just using these colors to kind of blow back into the center a little bit to create this kind of weird rainbowy effect, kind of like what is in the inspiration piece. And I like the way that it ends up looking. I actually did 3 of these. I'm only showing you one. I did it 3 times just to kind of see what kind of different effects I got, because I'm not super experienced in doing alcohol ink, and so I kind of wanted to play around with it and see what which one looked the best. So I end up using one of the pieces. I don't think it's this one though. I think I used like the last one that I did, but I didn't catch all of it on film. I just played around first just to see which one I liked the best, and I end up liking the other one a little bit better than this one. But it's the same idea, same principles. I'm using that little blower. If you use a heat gun, it does dry the alcohol ink very fast, and the heat gun kind of moves that alcohol around really much harder than you really want it to go. This gives you a lot more control. So using that little squishy tool from Ranger or Tim Holtz. So I'm liking the way that that's looking. Just playing around with it. I didn't put all of the color names of all of the Picasso inks in because they come in a set. So I'll just put the name of the set down below, and if you're interested in that, that's something you can pick up. I think they carry it on Amazon. I don't know if they have it on any of my other areas that I normally link up to, but I'll take a look and put it down below wherever they have it. So this virtual reality guy is a cut file from Creative Fabrica, and I really like the way he looked. I'm going to replace the lens of his goggles, as you see there, with the alcohol ink piece, and then I am going to use these white pieces to fill in the areas that are left with the black outline there. I didn't want to leave them blank because I think that reads better with it filled in. And I really like the way that this comes out. I am going to put a little bit of color on all of these white pieces because I didn't want it to look like just, I don't know, it looked weird being just plain white. So I'm going to add a little bit of a flesh tone to the bottom half of the face and neck there. And then the other pieces, I'm going to add just a light color to kind of change it up and make it feel like it's clothing or something like that. And it's very light and minimal, so you'll see that here in just a moment. Now I'm just lining up everything, because when you use an outline and you glue it down, a lot of times the outline stretches one way or the other, and then you have a little bit of a gap to fill in. And so I kind of had to play around with that to get the white piece to fill in where the gaps that the black had left, if that makes sense. And I wanted to make sure the black wasn't stretched too far open, that the white piece would also show or wouldn't cover that whole inside piece of the between the black lines. Hopefully that made sense. I'm just using my liquid glue to adhere all of this down and to kind of finish it off. I also really like that the goggles have the yellow towards the center, which is kind of what is coming out from the center of this sunburst or starburst effect. And then it goes more towards the blue away from the center there, which is kind of what happens when you get to that other piece of paper. It goes towards the purpley blue and then black. And I didn't really dip my pink brush into anything. I just took it without any extra ink on it, and I just started inking up this piece. It's very subtle. I'm going to add a little bit of tan as well to it to kind of make it look a little more skin toned. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not adding a whole lot of other color. Oh, I add gray, sorry. A little gray just to kind of darken it up a little bit. And you can tell the difference when the white is on the page. It's a little bit harder to tell the difference when it's away because it's very subtle. But I think it does work, and it does help kind of give you a nod to a skin tone. So I'm liking how that is looking. I'm just trying to get the placement right. I also need to leave room. I'm going to have, I think, 8 photos on this layout. Yeah, I think it's 8 photos. And so I want to make sure I have room. I'm going to do 2 at full size, 1 at slightly larger than 3 by, I don't know, a little bit larger than 4 by 4. So a little taller than 4 by 4. And then the rest will be 3 by 4s, or slightly smaller because they're printed on my selfie printer. So they are always a little bit smaller because of that. So I'm just, again, using my liquid glue to adhere everything down. Make sure it all stays where it's supposed to be. And then I will cut the pieces that are overhanging off the edge. I'll just use my scissors or my paper trimmer to trim those off, and that'll finish that off. So now you can't really see what I'm doing here. I mean, you can see that I'm writing with a black pen, but there's a piece of acetate over the top of that mixed media, or that alcohol inked piece of Yupo paper. And I did that because I want a little bit of a shine on it. And I also want to protect it because sometimes when the alcohol ink rubs against something, like maybe the inside of a page protector or something like that, it kind of seems to dull, at least in the couple of cases that I have used it. And I think you can buy a sealant for it, or of some sort, but I don't, like I said, I don't know a whole lot about playing with alcohol inks because I've only done it a couple of times. And so I thought I'd just put this acetate over the top. It'll keep it nice and protected. And the acetate makes it look like it is a glass screen, just like the VR goggles are. Well, I don't know if it's glass. It could be plexiglass, but similar idea. And now you're getting a nice reflection there off of the acetate. So you can't actually see a whole lot of the alcohol ink work, but that's okay. You saw it before and you kind of get the idea, and it looks great in real life. So I'm pretty happy with the way that turned out. This was all really just one huge experiment for me. I wasn't sure how this was going to work. I just knew I saw the image of the VR image, and then that sun in the sketch that had the burst, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's really cool because look at that, they match up. The sketch has this sun that would be more like a sunrise or a sunburst, but I am doing it with kind of like this knowledge burst or whatever. I don't know what you want to call it. This stencil die is from Paper Rose, and I will put the name of that down below as well, or the link to it. And I'm going to use that with some silver paper from Tonic Studios. It is silver mirror paper, I believe is what they call it. And so I went ahead and cut that. I just cut one of them, and then I'm cutting it up to fit it under. Now the problem I'm going to have is because I'm on mixed media, I used liquid glue to adhere all of my photos down, and I got really close to the edges, which is not like me. I normally leave them kind of like the edges I can pull up and tuck things under. I don't know what I was thinking or what I wasn't thinking in this case, but I did not leave a lot of space to tuck anything under. So I kind of struggle with that a little bit here. But by cutting up this stencil, it seems to work out a little better because I can kind of make it look like it's tucked under, even though it's not tucked under by a whole lot. It's just barely tucked under there. And the fact that this has a grid line on it really helps because it helps me to know exactly where to cut and then be able to tuck. So I'm happy with the way that it looks at the end of the day, but I was really not thinking when I did all of that gluing. I did know I needed it glued down, and I actually set something on top of it. I set a notebook on top of it to hold all those pictures in place while it glued down, because it took it a little bit of pressure to make sure everything stayed flat. And my acrylic blocks are not big enough to cover all of this space. And so I set a notepad on it and walked away. And when I came back, it was definitely glued down. While I work on tucking these under, just remember there are a bunch of links down below for Stretch the Sketch, a bunch of people playing along this month, and they are probably playing along with 30 Days of Sketches as well, and if not, there are other people playing along with 30 Days of Sketches. There's a playlist down below for that also. You can go and check out all of the inspiration that has been posted so far for 30 Days of Sketches, and like I said, I'm not sure I will be back in the next few days or anything because I'm trying to give my voice a rest. This has been a bit of a struggle, and I want to make sure that I'm well enough for the other things that I have going on that are commitments. So bear with me, but I will be back. Just give me a few days. So this is a font that I got on Creative Fabrica. I'm sure you can find something similar on like a DeFont free site or something. But this one, I don't actually remember the name of it, but I just typed in virtual reality font and it came up and I really liked it. And I will put a link to the font on Creative Fabrica down below in case you're interested in getting it from them or knowing more about it and then finding something that's similar. And I thought this would work really well for this layout. It's kind of space age looking, and I think that works perfectly for this. Just to get the spacing, I'm using the piece that it was cut out of as a template as to where to lay everything down. And I'm going to do the same thing here for the virtual reality portion of the title. So my title is Virtual Reality Experience, and I really like the way that it ends up looking. The reason I chose to put it on the right-hand page is because I've already got that VR guy that provides a lot of interest on the left-hand page. So I thought this kind of balanced the page out. I did go to my bin of black and white ephemera, and I pulled out some black and white labels that I thought would work. I'm keeping this very simple because there's so much color in the background and a lot going on that keeping the rest of it simple was kind of important. Otherwise, it's very difficult to read for your eye because there's so much color. So keeping all of that bright, bold stuff in the background and then keeping the foreground more simple makes it easier for your eye to read. The labels that I'm trying to put in here are chalkboard labels, and they're almost kind of like a vinyl feel to them. And so getting them tucked under where I have so much glue on these photos was a little bit difficult because they like to bend. There's no stiffness to them like a piece of cardstock would have. So it took me a little while to get those down. But once I got them down, I was pretty happy with the way it came out. It gave me just a little bit of room to write some information about the boys stopping by on their way through town and what they're doing in these videos. I thought that was really kind of cool. And I'm not trying to keep them, straight or linear. I'm kind of doing angles, which makes it feel a little bit more natural. And I like the way that that looks. I'm going to put one down here in the bottom corner, but this one actually has like a who, what, when, where type of deal. It has a spot for the date and then who and where and all of that. So I'm leaving that one in its proper orientation because that way I can write on it. You don't have to it's not tucked under and you can see the whole label. I did find this chipboard piece that says highlights. I decided to put it underneath where it says experience, although it would have fit really nicely above this VR guy's shoulder, but I decided to put it right under where it says experience. And there were actually quite a few other pictures and some video as well of the boys doing this. So I might actually it just occurred to me that I could print a QR code and a link to some video of them doing this, which I might end up doing, but I thought the word highlights worked well because this really is just the highlights of it. I'm just going to do a little bit of journaling and close-ups will be coming up. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. If you have any questions or comments, just leave those down below. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to check out the other people playing along with Stretch the Sketch. And don't forget to check out the people playing along with 30 Days of Sketches. I hope you enjoyed this one. I missed Mixed Media Mayhem on Friday. And so hopefully this made up for that, because there's a ton of mixed media on here. And it definitely works for Stretch to Sketch, because I have stretched that sketch that was from 30 Days of Sketches. So hopefully that provided you a little inspiration on either using a sketch or stretching it. Thanks again for watching, you guys. I'll see you guys again real soon. Bye bye.